I don't know, what shall I do, because I
Okay,
can't...
click on the... Нажмите, просто кликните мышкой по вашему слайду. Просто сверху по нему кликните. Вот,
Yeah,
все пошло.
that's it. Thank you very much. So, in our research, we set two main aims. The first aim is to determine the place of a linguocultural type in the categorical system of conceptology. This is the first one. And the second one, to identify the main characteristics of a linguocultural type as one of the varieties of conceptology. As a separate science, linguoculturology became necessary after it turned out that in the science of man, there is no place for main thing that created man and his intellect culture. Nevertheless, the Grimm brothers thought about the problem earlier in the 19th century. In the 19th century, people have been interested in it since the 60s of the 20th century, arguing that culture reflects itself to the greatest extent in language. But it has become more widespread over the past 30 years, and it is usually characterized as a branch of linguistics that emerged at the intersection of linguistics and cultural studies. You can see a little scheme on the screen. It is also a direction of a linguistic that combines the results of various studies and many sciences, such as cultural studies, ethnolinguistics, and linguistics as well. Considering that the key object of linguoculturology is the study of the relationship between language and culture, it is a subject. Its subject is the forms of life as they are represented in communication. A deep study of conceptology has recently begun. The latter subsequently separated from this science. All these contributed to the emergence of a new direction, namely the creation of a linguocultural type. The study of the relation language and culture is of particular interest to researchers, where the cultural factor is manifested in the language. In the linguoculturology, language is considered as a phenomenon that helps an ethnic group to express itself and to show a special nation mentality. But on the other hand, there is a consideration of language and culture. As for the definition of linguistic type, there are a lot of scholars who, so to say, try to define this very notion. In our research, I have chosen two scholars. They are Karasik and Manova. If we speak about Karasik's definition, he considers that linguocultural type is a generalized image of a representative of a certain social group within a particular culture, recognizable by the specific characteristics of verbal and nonverbal behavior and value orientations. Another definition was given by Ichmanova. And in this definition, we can see that a linguocultural type is a general type of a personality whose behavior expresses the most bright, recognizable characteristics of a certain ethnic group or social group within this ethnic group in a certain historical period. The linguocultural type reflects the sign of both a real person and a character in fiction, theater, and cinematography. It is also worth noting that linguocultural types are abstract mental formations, generalized personality types, varieties of the concept in some way. And there are other concepts of a lower level. These are the role, image, stereotype, role, character, image, as well as the speech behavior and speech characteristics. Here we can also include communicative portrait, linguocultural type, model personality. It should be also noted that Karasik added to the basic concept the speech passport of the speakers and the language either style of the person. The linguocultural type is characterized by a number of relevant features. The main features, there are a lot of features, but I included from our point of view the most important. They are symbolism, associativity, typicality, ideological symbolism, precedence, and gender, of course. What can be also said? Any linguocultural type has conceptual, figurative, and value components. In some, so to say, in some books we can see components, in some books we can see characteristics. In our research, we consider that components are as being a synonym to characteristics. Let us deal with each of the components in details. Let us start with value characteristics. Value characteristics in this case, in the case of linguocultural type, will be presented as language units accompanying the text, which can be identified through analysis. For example, these can be value priorities, features of a society and its culture. And as you know, the characteristics of the culture are the main ones when choosing a behavior model. Let's continue with conceptual characteristics. Conceptual characteristics are, first of all, the semantics of the world, its meaning in various concepts. And it is these characteristics that, when creating a linguocultural type, help to form an initial idea of the object to study. At the stage of defining a concept, concepts are relevant that they can be a priority associated with it. Here, I can provide an example. As an example is the concept of migration, which can be associated with such concepts as relocation, refugee, and some others. And these are conceptual characteristics. And the last component, or the last characteristic here is the figurative component of the formation. The figurative component of the formation of a typified personality has a direct connection with conceptual characteristics, since the existence of the image is impossible without an initiative understanding of what a particular subject is. At the same time, there is an opinion that the image can be initially laid in the mind of a person at the time of his birth. There are a lot of classifications of linguocultural types. So to say, I tried to point out probably the most interesting and the most important classifications. The first classification is on the basis of belonging to a particular society, ethnocultural, sociocultural. The second one can be on the basis of evolutional mark. This is positive linguocultural type and negative linguocultural type. The third one is according to the severity of recognizable characteristics, bright linguocultural type and soft. This is not very bright. The next one is on the following of reality of the linguistic personality, real real linguocultural type, or a fictional. And the fifth one is by associative feature, fixed or dispersed. I want to here to add that still a lot of research is being done to enrich the existing classifications, and there are a lot of attempts to create new ones. As for the main results of our little, so to say, research can be the following. A linguocultural type is not an ideal, an example of a representation of a group, what a model personality is. It differs from a model or personality, but it is a symbol of culture, and its reflection on the object under the study forms the main ideas of the study. And the second result A linguocultural type can have both a real prototype and a fictional one. It is a recognizable image based on his verbal and nonverbal behavior and other characteristics inherited in it, such as the way of thinking, portrait, characters, speech characters, and others. The results of the study not only contribute regional knowledge to theory and methodology, but also empirically induce to expand the conceptual, figurative, and value components or characteristics of the linguocultural type. So that's probably all. Thank you for your attention. It was a great pleasure for me to perform in front of you. If you have some questions, I'm very welcome to answer them. Can I close the demonstration of the screen or not?
Well, leave it behind, please, just for a couple of minutes.
Many thanks you, Anastasia, for your interesting presentation. Let me ask if our esteemed audience have any questions.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Елена Sachkova, and I have a question. As far as I have seen, one of the characteristics or components of linguocultural type is symbolism. Am I right?
Yes, in some cases it can be symbolism, but in some research, symbolism is not included. I decide to include here because it is not so the main characteristic, but at least it can exist.
Great, thank you. And what is meant by symbolism in the context of linguocultural type?
Yeah, thank you. I understand the question. Symbolism in the, so to say, perspective of the linguocultural type is meant that some features is symbolic to this linguocultural type. They can be absolutely different to any person and to any other culture.
Okay, and because just this point is closely connected with my scientific research, I just, if you have any references to literature where this problem is discussed as symbolism as a component of linguocultural type, can you advise something?
Yeah, you can, for example, find some information in Manova. Yeah. In Karasik, but it is not very widespread. His point of view is not, so to say, is not clear, but it is, so to say, slightly mentioned. I want to say that, and Demyanova.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
More questions? If that's all, let me move on to our next speaker. Thank you, Anastasia, for paid attention and work done.
Thank you.
Tatiana, let me ask you if you are with us.
No, the next one will be Daria. Tatiana Nikolaevna is still connecting.
No problem.
So, Daria, please, 做好准备. And Vladimir, can you make an introduction, please?
No problem. Okay, let's continue. Speaker is Silva Daria, our first year postgraduate student of Moscow State, particularly in theory of language and form and French, with the report information vaccine war
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I will try
Yes.
to hear again. I think I have not very stable connection.
Okay, let's try again.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, if you let me, I will not go into full demonstration because I'm afraid my laptop can be freezing.
Okay.
Okay. My small research is devoted to informational vaccine wars in the mass media discourse. It's rather linguistic and theoretical aspect of the question. Recently, the world faces a process of active informatization of the society and the globalization of the world informational space. And when we talk about the informational space, we mean the combination of modern ways of bringing information to the global society, such as mass media platforms and social media platforms. The consequences of globalization of the world information space is different kind of informational wars, where the mass media plays the main and the most important role. The brightest example of the information war that covered the whole world without any exceptions and continues till now is the informational vaccine war associated with the pandemic of the COVID-19 from 2019 until now, 2021-22. So the purpose of the research, first of all, is to identify the phenomenon of vaccine informational war in linguistic theory. And the second one is to define linguistic and pragmatic aspect of vaccine informational war in the mass media and discourse nowadays. So if we are talking about theoretical aspects of informational war, it's very important to mention that the scientific term was first established within the framework of political science and political linguistics. The central idea for the majority of researchers was to find and identify the linguistic methods and techniques used by mass media as an effective way of manipulating the public consciousness. The main attention was always paid on informational content, identification and classification of the linguistic methods and techniques. For instance, the studies of epithets, metaphors, neologisms, and etc. When we talk about empirical part of the research, there are 2 points that should be mentioned. First of all, a technical component of the informational war. It's how. Basically, it's mechanism of informational influence, where the informational pressure takes place. It's different mass media and social platforms. And what is important here is the different features of media platforms in different countries. For example, in China, it's total mediocracy. The whole mass media is under governmental control. When we talk about Russia, it's a sort of mixed type. And the second one is content component. So basically it's informational content. So specific usage of language in the mass media. It can be different stylistic analysis, comparative methods, content analysis, discourse analysis, and etc. So the phenomenon of vaccine informational war. So before all studies that were conducted before the pandemic started in different kinds of informational war, informational war in mass media was a priority of political science and political linguistics. It's where the main focus was on semantics. Secondly, the research of informational war in mass media discourse was limited by the studies of the language content component. So it's specific usage of the language units in the mass media. And thirdly, the informational wars were to influence a specific community of people, geographically, ethnically, confessionally, politically, economically, and etc. And what the main question of what vaccine informational war has brought. Firstly, from theoretical point of view, the phenomenon of vaccine informational war goes beyond political science. It covers the study of cognitive linguistics, social linguistics, and etc. Thus, it takes us to a very special field, to media linguistics, which covers all the majority of linguistic fields rather than just one political science. From empirical point of view, it covers different kinds of mechanism of informational influence, which also have to be analyzed. And thirdly, the most important part, that the vaccine informational war influences the global community rather than a specific one. Okay, my presentation starts sort of freezing now. Okay, I will continue. In 2019, the World Health Organization issued a report ranking vaccine hesitancy as one of the top of the 10 threats to the global health. In order to tackle the vaccination issue, the causes of the success of the anti-vaccination movements need to be carefully analyzed. Until now, it has been shown that vaccination choices influenced by the belief in alternative medicine, the belief in conspiracy theories, the morality, religion, and personal ideology. The amount of appeals to the lack of trust in authorities and etc. And basically, we can call it all the extra-linguistic factors. However, the main driving forces still happen to be the communication in the mass media and the language. However, the language functions very differently in different forms of mass media. For example, in periodical print publications, it's newspapers and magazines, online editions, it's online media platforms, TV channels, radio channels, and etc. And so the results of the report is that the new vaccine informational war related to COVID-19 pandemic is not limited within political linguistics and political science. It can be defined as a set of mass communication practices with a purpose to influence through mass media with the specific linguistic methods and techniques on a global community rather than as a very specific and limited one. In order to identify strategies to decrease the spread of vaccine misinformation online and to identify the potential communication strategies to be used, it is very important to take into consideration different forms of mass media, because the language functions very differently accordingly to different forms of mass media and different countries where it is used. That's all. Thank you for your attention. I'm very sorry, I cannot, I'm clicking right now and I cannot move anything on my computer. So if you could help me, maybe you will stop the moderator, stop
yes.
sharing.
Can you click on your computer?
Yes.
It's okay. Oh, okay.
I cannot switch it off and I cannot move my mouse.
Oh, yeah, probably it's the computer. If you can refresh the demonstration.
Yeah, I'm doing
Yeah,
it right
stop
now.
it and do it again. Okay. Please, any questions? Just feel free to ask. Okay, probably I will ask you the first question, Daria. As far as I understand, you use what materials?
I used, first of all, it's theory of informational war from different scientists all over the world, but the most important part of the research was to analyze the previous researches connected to informational war in the theory of language and in political science, because the majority of the researches, they were rather cross-disciplinary.
Yeah, but have you used any, I don't know, magazines, maybe online papers?
Yes, I understood your question.
Which ones?
Not yet, because as I said in the very beginning, the research is devoted to the theoretical part of the question of the vaccine informational war. So it's a part of a rather great research, which will.
Oh, I see. So you will use it in the future,
yes,
right?
yes.
As the second.
It is a small part of theoretical research and the analysis what has been done before and the limitations of previous researches.
Oh, I see. Thank you very much and wish you good luck with the second part of your research.
Okay, I can move it right now.
Okay.
I'm very sorry for my internet connection again.
It was fine, Daria. If that's all, let me move on to the next speaker. So we have one more question to Daria. You can see it in the chat.
Vladimir, can you read it out loud, please?
Could you please give some examples of the terms or widespread words that you consider to be the most important in this information war?
Daria, are you with us?
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Daria, are you here? We have lost you completely. Okay, let's just wait for Daria to return and answer her questions. And let us introduce the third speaker today. Vladimir, please.
It's Labanova Tatiana, Doctor of Philology and Director of the Regional Center for Chinese Language and Chinese Studies of the Moscow Region State University, with the report on discursive practices of media discourse in China for the period from 2019 to 2021. It's just, I suggest having these questions for Daria for the later period, maybe.
Yes, I think it will be better for the later because Daria is still having some connecting issues. So let's just move on.
Sorry for such a delay. Tatiana, if you don't mind, I will be sharing your presentation.
Yes, sure, I don't mind. I will be grateful to you if you help me with the presentation. Good afternoon, everyone, dear colleagues, students, researchers. Yes, I also feel sorry for being a little bit late. I have some problems with the internet connection, and I hope I will not disappear now because of the battery questions and my phone. So the title of my report today is China's Political Media Discourse on COVID-19 related topic as a subject of applied analysis. The next slide, please. The aim of this research is to describe political media discourse in China and to present our experience of using the methodology of critical discourse analysis and content analysis. My report today is devoted to some discursive practices of the political media discourse in China for the period 2019-2021. Contemporary linguistics and information technologies naturally involve an interdisciplinary study of national language in multisemiotic environment, which means theoretical and empirical analysis of three subsystems: interaction, media discourse, internet media, and politics in contemporary China. So language, technology, and political discourse together generate appropriate discursive practices. Now it would be better if you move on to the fourth slide. Vladimir, can you switch slides? Yes. The factual material was selected from three media platforms, such as Huanshu Wang, Fenhuang Wang, and the South China Morning Post for a specific chronological period of time. So first, let's pay attention to the media platform CCTV, Zhongwen Guoji, and units of analysis. We consider the media text as a whole voluminous, semiotically complicated project unfolding at several levels at once: verbal, videographic, and sound level, aimed at influencing the audience in various ways. So if we look at the slide number 6, we may see multimodal media text. What do they look like? Creating digital multimodal texts involves the use of communication technologies. However, multimodal texts can also be paper-based or live performances. They are semiotically complicated texts containing a non-verbal part, which together with verbal signs provide an effective impact on mass audience. Video sequences, soundtracks, etc. In the research, we examine the ways of applying the methodology of critical discourse analysis, or CDA, and content analysis to the materials of the Chinese media for the period of 3 years. The methodology includes CDA and content analysis. In the next slide, we can see, the slide number 8 and slide number 9, that corpus instruments can also be used during the analysis. Yeah. The next slide, please. Number 10. Number 10. The next one. So most of the real competition in the international relationship is now occurring in cyberspace, especially with regards to the aim of asserting narratives of truth and fake news phenomenon. Two key narratives are battlegrounds. They have ranged since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic are examined in Chinese media. The first narrative is where was the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the second, who has had the most successful response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So in the next slide, we can see narrative battle 1. Yeah. The origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. Much of the narratives asserted by the United States online, especially via Trump and Pompeo, attempted to establish the truth that not only did the virus originate in China, but the Communist Party of China could have prevented the pandemic. China was neither idle or passive in responding to the narratives being asserted by the United States. Chinese officials and Chinese state media began by angrily responding to American accusations and associations of the virus with China. So in the next slide, we can see that in order to obtain data on cyber narratives, we apply the CDA methodology to the Chinese media materials. Here we can see the material from the media platform Huanxu. So in the article, the world looks back on a difficult 2020, the new pandemic changes lifestyles, the world economy hit hard by coronavirus. The 3rd of December 9, 2020. We can translate the examples. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation on the 2019th announced that the mysterious virus was spreading in China. By the end of the year, no one can live on their own. People have lost their freedom and they are forced to pass the test of isolation or prevent the pandemic. They are not allowed to meet with relatives or friends. The new coronavirus pandemic tore off the disguise of Western countries: racial exclusion, severe social inequality, loss of confidence in the system, regression of democracy, etc. The principles that once embodied the best in our Western society are attacked by the viruses. So the paragraph presented by the Chinese discursiologist illustrates an example of a figurative metaphor for the entire collective West, evaluating democracy as a regime incapable of protecting its population. So this information is on the next slide. Will you switch off the slide, please? In the next slide, we can see media text. Next slide, please. We can, this one, yeah. In the next slide, we can see media text. USA media. The United States is 100 times worse than China in coping with novel coronavirus. From the 12th of June 2020. The novel coronavirus mortality rate in the United States has exceeded 340% per million residents, 100 times higher than in China. The next slide, please. And the next slide. Those examples, the examples above, built around China-USA discussion on pandemic issues. And these examples demonstrate Wardek's strategies of approval and perspectives. The interpretation of the information and results of the 2020 pandemic is highly rated for China and negatively assessed for the United States. On the next slide, we also can find the text. Next slide. Next. One more. Yeah. From media platform, Fenghuan Wang, we can find the article 国际疫情速度一周全球疫情 we can find the article counting and reading a week of global epidemics. The number of new confirmed cases and deaths worldwide has steadily declined. So the obvious difference in the media coverage of the platforms under study has its own explanation. The non-mainland English language South China Morning Post, in its top media, events, and discursive practices, opposes itself to mainland Chinese publications for a given chronological period of time, 3 years, and forms a whole gap in the presentation of material for a foreign, in this case, reader. The next slide. It is quite obvious that the media peak of the Hong Kong protests was not included in any top foreign events according to mainland China's publication. Mainland Chinese media prefer to broadcast the urgent problems of other countries and continents through a media bulletin according to the formula. The stronger the de-arrival, the more evaluating the discourse. And in the next 2 slides, we can also see some examples proving the first narrative. Examples above mentioned here above also provide evidence for the narrative battle 1, the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic that might have originated in the US. So the next slide, please. Will you switch to the next slide? Next one. And the next one. So what about the second narrative? More recently, in January 2021, Xinhua suggested that COVID-19 has appeared in multiple countries before China, citing that the virus had been found on samples of imported frozen food packagings. This seemed to be a somewhat desperate strategy of using multiple narratives as a kind of carpet bomb, as by offering multiple potential origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. China was hoping that it could, if not disprove, but obfuscate that widely accepted narrative that it began in Wuhan in December 2019. The next slide. So narrative battle 2, China has been the most successful in responding to the pandemic. And so we can see through the example that China feels more confident in Chinese media discussing the topic of solutions, the topic of curbing the pandemic than the topics of its origin. So we can come to some conclusions about Chinese media discourse. The next slide, please. The next. The last one. And the next. Yeah, we can come to some conclusions about China's political media discourse about the origin and curbing the pandemic, so that Sino-American competition in cyberspace over asserting the narratives of the truth is fierce. One cannot overlook the importance of discursive games China has been playing in the media and how this affect the Sino-American relationships. CDA and content analysis show that there are 2 main narrative battles that have occurred between China and the US in cyberspace since the onset of the COVID. After 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, it appears that both China and the United States have failed in asserting their narratives internationally, and they are both losers. In this case, on the first narrative battle over the origin of the virus, China's attempts to cast doubt over Wuhan being the origin of COVID-19 has been a massive failure. In the case for the second narrative battle, China has indeed won some international praise for its success in getting COVID-19 under control and in curbing the pandemic on the whole. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm ready. Maybe if you have some questions on the report.
Many thanks to Tatiana for the report, the topic of which is very important, more realities. Does we have any questions from esteemed audience?
Tatiana, are you planning to continue this research, or is it the final step?
Yes, I'm planning to continue this research because all the events that can happen, that are happening in society, are reflected by the language. So we can continue our study from the point of view of the period of time. So I can research, I can investigate and study the text for the year 2021, 2022, and so on.
I'm sorry, maybe I haven't paid too much attention, but why did you choose this particular this Huanqiu Bao, right?
Why did they choose these particular media platforms?
Yes.
So these three media platforms are governed by state in different levels. For example, Huanqiu Wang is a governmental media platform. At the same time, Huanqiu Wang is not so governmental media platforms. It's very interesting for me to compare the information given by these two media platforms to the audience of mainland China and given to the audience, to the foreign audience.
But they are both Chinese, or not?
Yes, and one of them is from Hong Kong, the South China.
Oh, I see. Because we often use with students two media platforms as well. One is mainland China mostly, and one is BBC. It's originated in USA, as far as understood, and it's always not the same, I can say. Every news has two opinions. One is from mainland China and one is from BBC. It's always very interesting to compare. So probably
but how to compare them? It's not possible to compare. One company, BBC, is a British one, and another company is Huanqiu Wang.
No. We don't use Huanqiu Wang. We use another ones originated from China on the same topic. We just choose one topic and see it from different points of view, from different media research.
I see. But you can't compare language in this way.
Yes, of course. It's very difficult, but we are mainly comparing the narrative.
The narrative. My
yes.
point is that my aim is also to compare the language, how language reflects the ideas, the narratives that are in the society. Do you understand my point?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have been disconnecting for a couple of seconds. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please type them in chat box or use your mic to say out loud. Just for a couple of minutes, we will waiting for your question. We have one question for Daria. Perhaps we will switch to this question and wait for a question for Tatiana. Daria, we had a question for you. Unfortunately, you were disconnected. Are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here, but unfortunately I have a very bad internet connection. I don't know why. It's freezing all the time when I switch on my camera.
Okay, just don't switch it on, please. I will read out loud your
Yes,
question.
thank you. Thank
Could
you.
could you please give some examples of the terms or widespread words that you consider to be the most important in this information war, and why do you consider them to be the most influential?
Well, right now, according to my research, one of the most important term is vaccine diplomacy. It is connected, this term is connected closely to political discourse because it's the relations that are right now between the countries to the vaccinational question, to vaccine question. The next term is vaccine hesitancy. As I told in my report, it's the term that that the World Health Organization invented for the particular problem of anti-vaccination movement. And another one which has a very negative connotation in basically in all languages, it is anti-vaxxers movement, anti-vaxxers. It is why it is important because it has become more a negative term. It is used to describe the enemies of vaccination.
Thank you very much. And I will check the chat box. Yes, it was from Alexandra. Thank you very much, Alexandra, for your question.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you. And we have some foreign guests here today, and I would like to ask you, do you in your countries have similar researches that our sinologists can look through or just refer to? I'm not sure, have you heard me or not? Professor Jesus Perez Garcia, do you have any similar researchers or maybe on this topic related in your country?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, yeah. Well, I haven't researched it specifically, but I've been very attentive to it in the media coverage since the pandemic started in Spain, and well, the situation in Spain is very different from other countries in Europe, like Germany, where there is a strong anti-vaxxer movement. It doesn't exist in Spain, and in my appreciation, the coverage from all the media, from right wing to left wing, follows very closely the narratives rising in the United States. For example, around March in the year 2020, in March, there was a campaign against the World Health Organization, which was heralded by Trump, and in our media, suddenly there was very negative reports against World Health Organization and its head, and its presumably or presumed linked to China, to China government, and this was very for the main public. I thought this was kind of confusing because it didn't make much sense, since Donald Trump isn't in very high esteem in the media coverage in Spain, and this attitude of the media disappeared in a couple of weeks. It suddenly didn't make any more sense. So in my opinion, the narratives in Spain are very confusing, are following the main lead of the United States, and they seem to be changing. There doesn't seem to be a coherent narrative. So this is my my appreciation, I have a lot of notes on it, but I haven't made a systematic research with a methodology. So I have rather the raw data. This is what I can say on it. And I thank the lecturers for their very interesting research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. And Tatiana, can you add anything about this topic in Russian papers? Maybe you have noticed, or maybe other listeners, they have similar researches, but based on Russian media.
Are you asking me?
Yes, first of all, I'm asking you.
Mhm.
Do we have any researchers on Russian media in this question?
I'm not sure that there are some researchers in the Russian media or among Russian researchers, but lately I have seen a lot of researchers about COVID, about pandemic on the whole, but not about media discourse about COVID, not about vaccine wars in the media, particularly in the Chinese media. I would like to ask Professor Jesus if he had been vaccinated in his country.
Yes, in our country, the vaccination rate is very high. The first and the second dose, because in Spain as well as in Portugal, there doesn't it doesn't exist an anti-vaccination attitude before the pandemic, and in my case, I had to I got COVID before vaccines existed without any problems, and I thought I was immune, but I had to get vaccinated in order to get this vaccine pass to travel. Otherwise, it isn't necessary in Spain practically. But with the third dose, this is changing. So most people are starting to get reluctant to get vaccinated a third or a fourth dose, and also for children, parents are starting to be more thoughtful about it.
Thank you very much. We are Russians in a very specific situation nowadays, because if we want to travel abroad, especially to Europe, we also have to have this COVID green pass. So can you imagine, we have been vaccinated twice. The first with Sputnik, and the second we have been vaccinated with your European vaccines like Pfizer. And we also have this COVID green pass. And it is also the part of vaccine wars, I would say. But we've managed it, but nobody has nobody has done research on this topic. But this is a real situation we are having now.
Yes, it's very interesting narrative, because we don't have only the problem from the COVID itself, but related problems from economics and politics all around the world. So it's not just like medical issue; it's more like our social issue as well, as far as I see it. And I would like to ask Professor from Hiroshima University, Toro, can you join us and tell just a few words about the situation in Japan? Professor Toro.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice opportunity to communicate with you. But my major is not my major is linguistics, so it's very difficult for me to ask you some questions, and I can't discuss with you. But it will give out some hint to share the idea with my students. So thank you very much. So 欢迎大家有机会来广岛。Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll be very happy to listen if you have any topics in the future related to this particular theme or any others. Thank you very much. And we have others. It's Yunhua Chang. I'm not sure where you're from, but if you can just tell a few words about situation in linguistic matter and in whole in general in your country.
So hello, my name is Yunhua Chang, but you can call me Judy, and I'm from Taiwan. I'm currently studying in Hong Kong. So far, I have been getting in touch into critical discourse analysis, and I'm there to analyze the YouTube interdiscursive constructions. So it's a different field than what you did. So it was interested that you did Sinology, and for us, we mainly focus on analyzing the cultural perspective of how does it affect YouTuber to teach language, specifically English, to persuade the viewers to buy their products. And yeah, it's basically that's my areas of study. And I found it quite interested of your research of how you link those vocabularies in Chinese translated in English with the political and social cultural backgrounds, which is very interesting.
Thank you very much. Wish you good luck with your research as well. It must be very, very interesting. Tatiana, do you have questions? I can see that your mic is on. No? Oh, okay. Yeah. And here is, there was, I'm sorry, she has already left. And Rodo Pfister, I'm not sure where you're from. If you have anything to add to our conversation. Rodo, I'm here. Okay. And I know that we have one question from Russian audience as well. Vladimir, please.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to ask. Tatiana, it's a general question for you, just a basic. How, in your opinion, can the results of your current research can be applied practically?
Should they be applied? Should they be applied? The result can be implied in different ways. For example, if you are the teacher or the professor at the university, you can work with media text with your students, and you should pay attention to this or that point, or to the way the Chinese media reflect the political situation in the world, so the students become more conscious about how media can work with our consciousness, how media can work with audience. It can be done through such disciplines as media linguistics, political discourse, or discourse practices, different questions, or different subjects, different disciplines. Or the results can also be applied by our researchers or by our analysts in such areas as political studies, humanitarian studies as well. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I see your position, and I agree. I think I consider your research kind of instruction for amateur sinologists and starting commoners. I mean, people who just started reading foreign media. As you said, it's a good experience for them to share and to be more, to analyze the media more thoroughly.
Yeah, to be more conscious about how media, how language reflects the ideas, the events of society, of what is happening in society, and how language and society are connected.
Yeah, thank you very much. It will be interesting, not now, it even will be interesting in several years after, when we will finish this COVID situation, and so we will have opportunities to compare. Thank you for your research. And if anyone has any question, please ask them now. And we will give you just a minute, I think, of time to type your question or click on your mic and ask it. And I remind everyone that you will get a certificate for attendance. So thank you very much that you have found some time today. And if we will do it automatically based on your name and email that you put in registration. So if anything is incorrect, just please write us about it and we will adjust in your certificate. And also we have translation. We are online on our YouTube channel now. So if you couldn't join us from the very beginning, you can go to our YouTube channel and watch it from the start. Thank you very much. Tatiana, if you have any other statements or any questions?
No more statements or questions or remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I do hope that in some time we will hear more of your research and maybe a book or an article at least. Thank you very much, and thank everyone who been talking today. We wish you all stay healthy in spite of the COVID and vaccine wars. Okay, thank you very much and goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you for the conference.
Have a nice day.